Hey everybody, this is AI with Dr. Craig, and I'm delighted to have Danny with us from the University of Sydney, who's written some great articles about AI, and the AI journey has been really impressive. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I guess I started on the journey maybe July 2022 when I stumbled across a GPT-3 just on OpenAI's playground, and I put a few assignment prompts in there, and I think, hang on a sec, this is something. And then from there, we tried to raise awareness. Some people didn't really care until ChatGPT came around in November 2022, and then everything broke loose by then.
And it was quite a landslide or a tsunami of interest and activity with it. But I think education has been the slowest probably sector to think about how do we harness this. What do you think?
I have a feeling that education is probably one of the sectors that reacted the most quickly to it.
Okay.
Not necessarily always reacting in the best way to it, like
Mm,
ban came across the sector, and a lot of
mm.
universities and schools said ban as opposed to embrace. But I think everyone is kind of reacting to this, and no one really has it figured out quite yet.
I noticed your article about the two-lane approach. What prompted that?
So very early on, we saw a lot of advice coming out from universities, other universities, which were thinking about how to AI-proof assignments, and thinking of things like, oh, if you just get students to write about personal experiences, or if you get them to use up-to-date references and those kind of things, and AI can't do that, surely. But then we very quickly realized that that's not really the way. AI proofing of a take-home assignment is not really the way to address this, and we knew that AI was going to be a very big part of everyone's life, especially part of students' lives as they graduated and started working started working. And so we needed a way to kind of say to students, well, we're going to help you learn how to productively and responsibly engage with AI, but at the same time, we have a moral responsibility and also a legal requirement to make sure that you graduate knowing what you're meant to know. And so at that point in time, we said, okay, well, there's no way that we can AI proof take home assignments. And so we might as well go the full hog and just say, for those such assignments, we're just going to help you with AI. We're going to support and scaffold the use of AI for you. And that's going to be the lane two. But we also need to kind of confirm that you know what you need to know. And those will be the lane one assignments or assessments.
So what would be the difference if you looked at someone presented you with a lane two versus a lane one, particularly lane one, which has to demonstrate the knowledge, skills, or understandings from the curriculum? What would they look like?
So a lane one assignment needs to be secured, and it needs to be the student in front of you, in person, because online can be fooled. We've seen lots of different AI avatars, for example, taking online interviews, and so even an online thing can't be lane one. It has to be an in-person assessment. And so an in-person lane one assessment basically is a situation where you have the student in front of you, and you know it's them and their brain. Giving you things, guys, talking through things, thinking through things. It may or may not involve the use of AI. Usually, it may not involve the use of AI because you want the student to just use their brain. But in certain disciplines, it might involve use of AI. So, for example, architecture students, they are very likely when they graduate going to need to know how to use image generation AI because that speeds up the ideation process with clients. And
Hmm.
so, in that situation, you might have a lane one assessment where you're one-to-one with your examiner in architecture, and they will say, okay, well, let's open up Midjourney, pretend I'm a client. I'm going to tell you my design brief, and you help me ideate really quickly, and we're going to work through designs like this. Okay, so lane one assessment has to be secured, could involve the use of AI, whereas lane two assessments are, I guess, open or not secured, and they definitely involve the use of AI in a scaffolded way.
Right, great. I predominantly work with primary and high schools, and I've seen the adoption of particular platforms be quite minimal. There's individual teachers in different regions who are doing really interesting things and gone way deep on creating their own GPTs and all sorts of other things. And that's quite inspirational to see. And they're doing their own learning because there seems to be a lack of understanding, maybe comfort, maybe leadership in the primary and the high school sector, particularly in New Zealand. It's not so supported as well by the new government that we have in terms of this is what we want you to do and how you can do it. And here's the guardrails to put around that. So, do you see things happening in the primary, intermediate, high school sector that are encouraging, discouraging, exciting? What do you see?
I think the K-12 sector is probably the most I feel for them because I think they're much more in danger of generative AI's implications than higher education. Um, the reason being, at that age, students haven't quite yet developed all the foundational knowledge they need, and also they're very tempted to try out new things because of peer pressure and all those kinds of things as well. So I think K-12 space for generative AI is probably the most tricky space to work in. So I really feel for the administrators and the educators in that sector. I think a lot of K-12 in Australia, for example, a lot of governments initially for 2023, they basically said, no, we're going to ban ChatGPT in schools, and they locked down the URL and those kind of things. But, who are they kidding, really? You can't ban technology like this when it's right in consumers' hands. And so a lot of governments and schools are now turning around and saying, okay, no, we do need to accept and embrace this and figure out ways to move forward with this in a productive way. And so I think they're a little bit behind higher education in terms of progress, and also
Mm,
just because one, it's a complex space. Two, you have a higher level of support needed, and also a duty of care requirements as well.
mm,
And also you just have a lot more people to help as well. So it's a really tricky space to work in.
yeah, yeah, very much so. I see the equity opportunity with AI. I can see the equity downfall if it's not supported by the ministries of education to make sure there's equitable access to AI, that skills and knowledge and understanding is made available for all, and having the resourcing to do that. What do you think about the opportunities to increase equity and access to quality education through AI?
So it's an interesting thing that like you said, the equity sword is double edged here, because on one end it could increase the digital divide in that the people who don't have access to the right infrastructure, the access to the internet, get left behind even more, and also the people who may not be able to afford these more modern tools or more modern AI tools get either access only to free versions, which are maybe 1 or 2 years old, which is a very long time in AI time,
Yes.
or aren't able to learn new techniques and new approaches to use these contemporary tools. And so there's a really big issue there, because of this equity divide. We just bringing together, I guess, the last two questions that we've talked about. Something that we're thinking about is the idea that the three or four things that need to be implemented across a context to make generative AI work. We've given it the acronym no, sorry, RAFT. I was going to say FART, but no, the other thing is better, RAFT. So the thinking is that you need rules, you need access, you need familiarity, and you need trust. Okay, so rules is what you mentioned before about, do we ban it? Obviously we don't, but we need to put guardrails around it. So that's
Mm,
rules, and permission, I guess, to do stuff. A is access. And so access, just like we've been talking about now, is the ability to get onto and play with these modern tools. That's R and A. The next one is F, which is familiarity, which you also kind of um, touched upon as well, which is the idea that we need to have people developing familiarity and understanding of these tools. And by familiarity, I don't just mean skills. I mean things like even recognition and acknowledgement of the ethics around the use of these tools
mm.
as well. So familiarity, and finally, trust. Trust, the idea behind that is basically we need to have radical transparency between teachers and students and governments and industry and vendors and institutions, these kind of things. And once we can build the trust of each other and also of AI, that will support our, I guess, future movements into this. So RAFT, rules, access, familiarity, trust. We figured that that's probably a good way forward.
That's really good. So that and the two lanes, is there some other ideas that you could share with us that you're comfortable to? Because these two are
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So the other idea we've been toying with recently is thinking about whether our learning outcomes need to be rethought. For a very long time, especially in higher education and probably also in K-12 education, a lot of the things that we've been doing in class with students is focused on content knowledge.
Mm,
And so I call that stuff. And I call it stuff intentionally to be slightly derogatory because I think we focus too much on stuff.
mm,
What the education sector, K-16, has focused more on in the recent decade or so has been more on skills. And so the idea that, yeah, we need to produce students who leave us knowing life skills. We need to know that they can communicate, they can collaborate, they have cultural competence and all these things when they leave us. But I think one thing that has been lacking in a lot of education has been the final S, which is soul. Um, and
mm,
soul is kind of thinking about the ideas of, compassion and care and community and connection and being able to deal with conflict and those kinds of things.
mm.
And so the stuff skills soul triumvirate is something that we're thinking about now to say, do we need to rediscover what we're about in education, no matter which level of education? And do we need to change some of our learning outcomes to better suit um, what we're trying to do, which is our core mission of producing human beings who can live in this world with each other?
Yeah, that's really good. My doctoral studies was in the creative industries and looking at how do we prepare graduates to be really successful. And the feedback kept coming back. It's great they have skills and they need to know how to work in a real work environment, but working in teams, empathy, time management, problem solving, communication skills, that soul stuff that's all about relationship is absolutely on point. Do you want to share with us about your doctoral studies, your original research at that level? What did you do?
My original doctoral studies is in a very obscure thing called plasmodesmata, which is actually the junctions between plant cells. And so I'm a plant cell molecular biologist, if you could put that together. And it was a strange kind of PhD. I really enjoyed my time. My PhD was great, but it kind of got me. I don't use a lot of my kind of disciplinary knowledge and stuff that I learned during my PhD, but what I do, I
Right.
think I get gained a lot from it is the skill and the soul that we developed during the process.
Lovely. So you're the Mark Watney from the morning
It's
show. You're
a
that guy,
strange background, yes.
the super smart botanist. I think that having those skill sets and the soul from other disciplines and bringing those into education and helping educators think in different ways about how people learn, how they demonstrate that, and how they apply that when they leave for the world of work. I think that's a powerful thing to do. Have that cross disciplinary perspective. What do you think?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing across the sector is, and also in the industry, is that there's much more recognition of the need to work in a transdisciplinary or an interdisciplinary context. It's not enough anymore for just STEM people to work together or for HAS people to work
Mm,
together. You need the interplay between those to actually address all the world's really wicked problems. Climate change, geopolitical instability, and all those kinds of things. It can't just be solved by one kind of knowledge or skill
mm.
anymore.
Do you think there's a space for AI tools to increase the consumption and demonstration of stuff so kids and learners can move on to the transdisciplinary use of it all?
I think AI tools can probably play a role in all three S's, the stuff, the skills, and also the soul. We know that the even the AI tools that we have now, which will eventually be superseded by better AI tools in the next few years, we know that a lot of these AI tools can already mimic the production of stuff. It can mimic um, I guess the conveyance of the skill, and also it can also mimic some of the soul elements as well. Like empathy and compassion and those kinds of things in what and how it says things. And so I think AI has a strange place in that it can really help us learn a lot more about ourselves and also not so much speed up, but make more meaningful the process of learning all these things as well.
Very good. Just in closing, Danny, what would you say to a school leader who's making a decision about the way to move forward with AI and they've been resisting, but the time has come?
Ooh, okay. I'd say my son came home yesterday, and he said in his maths classroom, there's a poster on the wall, and the poster says, "Be brave to be bad." Be brave to be bad. And I thought about it for a while. And he was talking in the context of his news, and he needed to talk about confidence and resilience and these kinds of things as keys to success in primary school. And so he mentioned this poster, and I was like, be brave to be bad. That's a really good message. We all need to be brave to be bad. We all need to be brave and brave enough to potentially fail and then pick ourselves up once we fail. And with AI being such a new thing that no one really has a lot of experience with, with it changing so fast, we need to be brave to be bad, and we need to embrace I guess, the sharing with each other, and the experimentation, and the changing culture that this needs. And so I'd say to those school leaders, be brave to be bad. Go for it. Everyone is discovering and playing and making mistakes in this, and the only way we're going to learn is if we share with each other our mistakes, our successes, and we work through this together.
Love it. Dr. Danny, thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thanks so much, Craig.